All right. So, as you know, or as you may not know, my name is God Jani, and I'm going to begin to start sharing some different ideas and philosophies. I spend a lot of time studying life, studying the masters, studying the secrets of this life that we live in. And I feel as though, it's something that I was called to do, because when I look around, everybody is doing their best to live, people have their jobs, some people who have been fortunate have been able to create homes and, have cars and have a nice situation for their families and for themselves. And then there are many others who haven't. But whether you have or whether you haven't, what I'm seeing is we're all still dealing with the same base issues. These base issues involve life. Now, I am a spiritual teacher, and when you understand spirituality, it's essentially everything that's happening outside of the ego's awareness. And essentially, your ego, or your brain, is a different entity than your mind. When it comes to your mind, it's connected to the real all. Your mind is connected to the infinite. And if you know the universal laws, the first universal law is the law of mentalism, which states that the mind is all. So when you understand that the mind is all, some people can wonder and say, well then, what is this brain? Is this brain a part of the all? Is this brain my mind? Because I'm thinking from my brain, right? Well, you're not. Essentially, you have a mind that's connected to something much, much greater, that's connected to essentially the cosmos. Essentially, those stars that you look at, that moon that you look at, are just representations of what's out there and what your mind is connected to. Your brain is connected to the earth. So essentially, your mind is taking this brain and essentially being filtered through the brain in order to exist in this reality. I'm not sure if you know or if you don't know if there's what's after life. Some people are atheists. Some people only follow science, which makes them a part of the religion of scientism, because science is basically the polarity to religion and to mythology. Many people think that science is independent of religion and mythology, but in actuality, science is a belief, just like Islam is a belief, just like Christianity is a belief. So the question is, what's undisputably true, and what are just beliefs that some of us have and that some of us don't? Well, if you want to know that, I say you begin with the 7 universal laws. The 7 universal laws are undisputable. They help you understand essentially where you fit in the grand scheme of the cosmos. And it also helps you understand that you do have the ability to create and the ability to manifest within the cosmos, even though you are limited with this brain. We all, by the nature of having a brain, are limited, because by having a brain, we're stuck with having to deal with good and bad, with different colors, with different frequencies, with different ideas, with different beliefs. And there's nothing wrong with all of these things. The problem is we have to filter all of them through one constant brain. You see what I mean? And that is the big issue, because let's say I was a bird and I had the ego of a bird, or the brain of a bird. Or let's say I had the brain of a lion, or let's say I had the brain of a giraffe. Whatever animal in this, I would be forced to see this entire cosmic connection that we're a part of. And I'd have to filter it through this one view, through this one entity, which in one degree can be cool because you get to experience a lot through this ego and this brain. But when you understand and when you can feel and connect with something and you know there's something greater out there, you realize that is where the negative comes in. You realize that the greatest teachers and shamans and alchemists of our day, the one thing that they knew was this one principle, this one core truth, which is no matter how beautiful I paint this reality, I still am limited because of this brain. Now, of course, because of this, we don't want to just throw it away. We have a brain. It's here for a reason. And it's here for us to grow. It's here for us to learn, because the truth is that if you can handle a lifetime of interpreting the cosmos with one brain, can you imagine the joy and elation and power you'll feel when you connect back to the all once you leave this brain? See, the brain is cool. You know, the brain is fun. It's good to be competitive. It's good to want great things. It's good to challenge yourself. It's good to learn. But how good is that when everything that you studied can be taken away like this? What good is it when the art that you practiced and studied your whole life, let's say you're an athlete, you're one accident away from losing it all. You're one injury away from never being able to play the game again. I know this can sound depressing for some people, but I think that's where the ultimate level of power comes from. Because once you understand this, you can continue to do the things that you do, but you now do them with a higher level of balance, because you're not lost in these activities 100%. There's nothing wrong with being lost in the things that you love. But you also got to make sure to not be lost in the things that you don't love. Lost in that job. Lost in having to pay your bills every day. Lost in having to survive. Lost in having to get that degree. Lost into having to fulfill these obligations. You see, when you get caught into all of these things, it can feel like you have no choice. It can feel like it matters so much. It can feel like this is everything. But and you can scold other people a lot. Oh, well, he's doing that. I'm doing better than him. See, that's the ego's job. The ego's job is to create as many illusions as it needs to make sure that you're paying attention to the ego. Because the minute you decide to pay attention to the cosmos, to be quote unquote spiritual, guess what? Your ego is now dealing with a problem. You see, when the ego of a lion or any of these other animals are going on, the ego doesn't have much disruption. It's fight or flight, fear or power, live or die. And these animals go right ahead with it, so there's no problems with it. The minute man, human, means the thinking man, the colored man with hue, as you know, hue represents color. You see, once this melanated man came into the picture, or this being that was composed of more than just the ego came into the picture, it then forced the ego to have to step up. It then created a challenge for the ego, a duality for the ego to deal with. Because the ego had to realize, oh wait, there's a being on this planet that's connected to something more than me. You think the ego liked that? I'm sure it did. At first it did. Because it's like, all right, great, I get to be the man on this planet. But then as it became better and better, it began to look at the condition of its peers. And that's where a lot of the pain can come. So my message right now as I move forward and begin talking and sharing is first to understand why spirituality is here. Understand why it matters. Because for as many people as there are who are scientists or atheists, you're one major problem away from completely losing yourself. These scientists think they have everything figured out, and the atheist is like, well, I know what happens after life and death, but you don't. You see? I do respect the atheist or scientist for recognizing their ignorance. But I think where they mess up is then making ignorance the all, the ultimate religion. Nobody knows the truth unless you have a theory, or we can't even call anything a fact because everything is a theory. So it essentially guides people away from belief, which is good because you shouldn't think you have it all figured out. But then we push them into this, this ignorance, You know, we give each other pills to ignore the problems. You know, we give each other mathematics and these things to make people feel like, hey, you know, we're stuck in this thing where nobody knows what's going on, but the best thing you can do is use your science, use math. And there is some truth to that, but there's some wrong to that, because we do know the truth. The universal laws are indisputable. Natural law, universal laws. Look them up, they're right there on Google, they're right there on Wikipedia. This is indisputable. So right now, that means that science isn't telling the full truth. And I've always been a person who seeks truth. So with that being said, use this as an opportunity for those of you who already are spiritual. It's time for you to use your spirituality now to allow your egoic experience to be better. And for those of you going through challenges, which are inevitable as well, because there will be good and there will be bad, as long as you're dealing with this brain right here. As long as that is the case, you must also realize that this brain can only take you so far. And that at a certain point, your brain will have to be humbled. If it isn't now, it will be when you're 60, 70 years old, and everything that matters now is nothing but a story 40 years ago to your great-grandchild or your grandchild. And where these looks that matter so much to you begin to become, you know, saggy, and your arms are sagging, and then all these things that matter so much are nothing but a old memory that you can tell your friends about or recap with. And in your ability to understand that now, I hope it allows you to be more present now, more appreciative of the moment, more appreciative of the beauty that you do have, and not so much caring about the problems that you have, you know, because it's all fluid. It will all be this today and different next week. I'm sure many of you can't even remember what you did 2 weeks ago. If I say the Wednesday that happened 2 weeks ago, what happened on that day? Tell me in precision. Do you remember? Odds are you don't. And I know some of you have photographic memory. That's good for you all. But the main point is this, man. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so tough on yourself. And become a creator. That's the key to being a creator, is having fun. And the first thing you do to have fun is realize it's not all that serious. Realize that whatever rules exist aren't even that serious of rules, because I can make my own rules. Get into the mindset of the child, of the baby, who already knows they don't know what's going on. They're so humble, they let their mom and dad tell them what to do, and they just live. But you notice that when they live with this presentness and this freeness. And that's the presentness and freeness that you'll need to handle life and to thrive in this life and to be happy and joyful. So, and free, ultimately. So with that being said, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to giving you more and more information, more and more power, and more growth. And with that being said, God Jani, we'll be back later. Until then, I'll be in the heavens talking with my gods and goddesses, and I'll come back to return to earth soon.